Alright, welcome back. So today we have SCYLLA here. She has been requested a numerous amount of times. You can tell by these comments here. She's been requested for a very long time. So it's about time that we get into it. Now with SCYLLA, obviously she's a very high bursty mage, and that means her build is going to be pretty similar to other high bursty mages. So let's get into it, starting with Conquest. Now, with Conquest, and for SCYLLA specifically, her early game clear is not all that great, and to help you out there, I'd highly recommend picking up the Soulstone starter item. Now, in this patch that I am recording in, 3.13, there's no longer the 450 magical power potion that used to give you, I think it was like either 40 or 50 magical power for 5 minutes. Normally you would pick up that potion and pair that up with the Soulstone starter item, and that allows SCYLLA's early game clear to be a lot better. And since that's no longer in the game right now, I can't recommend that, obviously, since they might be adding that back with some changes in Smite patch 3.14 or later on in the season. So I might update the description below or put it in the comments saying when or if the power potion will be back and if it would be viable to start for SCYLLA. But for now, all we have is Soulstone, so I recommend going to that. If you really like Vampiric Shroud for the fact that it gives you a lot of sustain, then go for that, but for the most part you definitely want to go to Soulstone, so that way your early game clear is not too bad, and that way you don't get forced out of lane and be under leveled compared to the other mage on the other side on the enemy team. So for now, let's just go into Soulstone. Now from here, there are a few different starts that you can go into for a mage. For one, let's say if you want a very high burst, let's go to a very high bursty build. Since SCYLLA, she has a really nice escape and you can pull this off. So you go to starter item, you go into the tier 1 item called Lost Artifact, and you can build this directly right away into the Doom Orb item. If you're not familiar with this item, it's fairly cheap, only $14.50, and it gives you a lot of magical power, granted if you can stay alive and build all 50 stacks. Once you have all 50 stacks, you have an additional 100 magical power on top of the 40 it already gives you. So for 450 gold, you have 140 magical power. However, this comes at a very big price. If you do die with stacks, it cuts your stacks in half, which can really, if you keep dying over and over, then this item is obviously not worth it. So again, high risk, high reward. If you don't want to do that, instead of the Lost Artifact building into Doom Orb, you can build the Lost Artifact right into the Chronos Pendant for the goal of you want both magical power and cooldown reduction, obviously. If you don't want to go into that, then you can go into something else. Instead of the Lost Artifact as the starter item, as the tier 1 item after your starter item, you can go into a penetration item called the Imperial Helmet. It's also under defense as well. So Imperial Helmet, only 600 gold, just like the Lost Artifact, and with this you can build it directly into the Dynasty Plate Helmet. As you can see, it's very cheap, and the purpose of going to this item instead of like a Chronos Pendant or Doom Orb, this item helps you to be a little bit more tankier. So let's say you're laning against a hunter or another physical god, and as well as maybe the enemy jungler is also physical, so you're dealing with 2 physical gods in the middle lane, and you want some protection so that way you're not too squishy, as well as this item does provide you with a good bit of power, both in obviously magical power, and it also gives you plus 15 magical penetration, which flat penetration is really strong early on, considering in the early stages of the game not too many characters have magical defense, as well as majority of the gods, as they level up, they gain more magical protections, and since it's early on, they're not going to have much base magical protection. So having a lot of this flat pen will allow you to do a lot of damage. So between going to the Dynasty Plate Helmet and going to the Pen Boots, you have 25 flat magical penetration in the very early stages of the game. You can go into the tab screen here and highlight over this icon, and you can see we have 25 pen out of 50. 50 is the cap of having flat penetration, so it's not too bad if you want to go into that. However, you can go into none of those different starts, and you can go straight into your boots right away and then continue on with your build. It really depends on what you want to do. And there's no actual right or wrong. A lot of these builds for these characters are just personal preference and what you see really works for you. So I won't be able to cover every single possibility here, or else the video will be way too long. But for now, let's just continue with the very high burst build. Let's go into Doom Orb, go to our Pen Boots, After this point, if you still want another stack item like Book of Thoth or Warlock Sash, you can do so. If you want cooldown reduction, you can do that as well, or you could go straight into your penetration item right away. But for now, let's just go into a very high burst build. We're going to go into the Book of Thoth. After this point, if you did not pick up penetration in this item slot, you definitely want to have penetration somewhere in your build, or else your damage is not going to be all that great. So let's just go to the Obsidian Shard penetration item. As far as the Spear of the Magus, it doesn't really work out a whole lot with SCYLLA, considering you cannot get these stacks on your enemies too easily. And as far as the Spear of Desolation, it's really expensive. It costs more than Rod to Hootie, so if you try building into this, it's going to really delay the rest of your build. And while you're still building into this, if you don't have a good lead, the enemy mage is going to be a lot further along in their build than you are. So we're just going to go to the Obsidian Shard, as well as penetration that's percentage based, does a lot of extra damage against structures and fire giants and phoenixes, etc. So after your penetration item of choice, we're going to go right into the Rod to Hootie, allow us to really bump up our magical power. Go back, you can sell your starter item whenever you feel like you don't need it. You can probably sell it to help finish off your stacking item or your penetration item, and then we can go back and pick up a different item like another really high burst magical power item, and that would definitely be the Soul Reaver. This build in total is kind of expensive between the Book of Thoth, Rod to Hootie, and Soul Reaver, but if you can manage to finish all these items here, you're going to do a lot of damage. As well as, it's a pretty important to note that the Soul Reaver gives you 300 mana, and if you picked up Book of Thoth somewhere in your build, this passive on Book of Thoth directly works and feeds off of having a lot more mana. But let's say if you don't want Soul Reaver, another good item for SCYLLA, as long as you have a lot of magical power in your build, is definitely Polynomicon. So the way the passive works, you do a damaging ability, and your next basic attack within 8 seconds does plus 75% of your magical power as additional magical damage. So you can hit him with the root and auto attack right away, and boom, you do a lot of quick burst damage. And again, it has plus 300 mana. So if you pair this up with Book of Thoth, it does a lot of damage. So you can do something like that. You could probably fit both Soul Reaver and Book of Thoth, or Soul Reaver and Polynomicon in the case of you did not pick up Book of Thoth, so you have an extra item slot. And you can mess around with different builds as you want to. Now, backtracking a bit, as far as what you do for a casual game mode like Arena, well, for the most part, you would just go straight into your boots. There's no real need for a starter item in Arena, so we can go to our boots here, go to pin boots. As for the case of Arena and other game modes like it where you're fighting almost constantly, it's very important to have cooldown reduction to help you have all your abilities up when you need them, obviously. So you can go into a cooldown reduction item right after your boots if you want to. You can still go into a stacking item in Arena, given that you're pretty much the only lane clearing there. If you have other lane clearing gods like other mages, you might not be able to get all your stacks on, so it might not be worth it to go to a stacking item in that case. But for now, we can, we're just going to go to Book of Thoth and go into our cooldown reduction item. If you want to get your cooldown reduction item before you stack an item, it's up to you. And then we can go straight to our pin, go to the Rod to Hootie, and then we can top it off with one of the other items that you want, like again, Polynomicon or the Soul Reaver, whichever one you prefer. For now, just go to Soul Reaver and you can do something like this. In some cases, for any real game mode like Conquest or Arena, once you finish your entire build, it's pretty common to go back, sell your pin boots for cooldown reduction boots, because the late stages of the game for Conquest and other game modes like it, you're pretty much fighting a lot. So, the laning game mode, the laning phase, I guess I should say, it's pretty much over for the late game in Conquest, and so you're gonna need a lot more cooldown reduction so you can be ready for the fights. So you go into your cooldown boots at the late game. And then as far as your relics, pick up whatever you need. It's all personal preference. Purification obviously is one of the greatest relics of all time, so you don't have to waste your ultimate to be CC immune, and the other relics you can pick up, whatever you need. So that's going to wrap it up for the build video. Hopefully it was helpful and provided you with some ideas on what you build for your SCYLLA. Again, I can't cover every single possibility for a nice build for SCYLLA, so thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.